John McClain joins us now. John, we haven't talked to you in a couple weeks. Did you get some vacay in before training camp started?
Everywhere I go, Paul, I still do talk shows and podcasts and write columns for SportsRadio610.com. I just do it in different places. I came up to Waco this past weekend for the funeral of a woman, Nell Hart, that I've known just over 50 years. Saw a lot of friends. It was like a reunion. Condolences to her son, Gary, and Dana, her daughter, and their families. And so I still work. But, truth is, Paul, what I do is not work. The last time I really worked, I mowed yards in Waco. I did that. And I worked at Goldstein McGill's department men's store selling men's clothes while I was a freshman at MCC. And then I started working for Dave Campbell and Tribune Herald going in my junior year at Baylor. So I haven't worked really since I worked at Goldstein's, because what we do talking about sports for a living and writing about sports, that's not work.
Amen.
No.
Amen.
Amen, John. Absolutely.
We are so lucky.
So, John, Texans start training camp. C.J. Stroud obviously in the fold. What is the outlook for them right now, given the almost entirely new roster that they have?
D'Amico Ryan's the new coach, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, although he'll call the defenses. He's not announced that yet, but he will. And we all know Stroud's going to be the starting quarterback, even though they haven't announced it. And I think that's smart. Keep some doubt there for him. Make sure the veteran players know when he's anointed as the starter, he will have earned it over Davis Mills, the starter for his first 2 years in the league. And they do have a lot of new players. Dalton Schultz from the Cowboys, Noah Brown from the Cowboys. Noah Brown coming off the only good season he had with the Cowboys. And he was very impressive in the offseason, playing inside and out, 6'2", 215. Schultz signed a 1-year, $9 million contract, and there's a good chance he will be C.J. Stroud's leading receiver. And so they've got a lot of changes on both sides of the ball. Last 3 years, they've won 4-4 in 3 games. And it's hard to believe 4 years ago they were in the playoffs, beat Buffalo, blew a 24-point lead at Kansas City, and went straight down the toilet after that. And so people here are fired up, not about the playoffs. People are smart. They understand that if this team could win 6 games, double last year's win total, that would be progress. Anything else would be like a cherry on top of a ice cream soda.
And I'm sure most Texans fans know this, but for anybody just interested in learning more about them, they should check out your column on Sports Radio 610, 10 Things Texans Have to Accomplish in D'Amico Ryan's first training camp. There's a lot of good information in there, John. And towards the end, you bring up, Jalen Pitre. You mentioned him and what a great year he had last year and kind of figuring out the rest of what might happen at safety. But for him in particular, what does he need to be better at coming into year number 2?
There are several players, not a lot, but several. They have no worries about it all, and Petry's one. One of the things Pitre struggled at for a while last year was he took bad angles and missed some tackles, and it was glaring. But he fixed it. And Lovie Smith was the defense coordinator and the head coach, and they worked well together. And then Pitre is a fan favorite, a coach's favorite. This staff, especially D'Amico Ryan's defense coordinator, Matt Burke, they love Pitre. He'll be working with 10-year veteran Jimmy Ward, who played his first 9 seasons with the 49ers and came with Ryans. And so those two will give them the best safety tandem they've had maybe forever.
John, some holdouts around the league. Nick Bosa, Zach Martin. The running back situation has gotten really strange, and Saquon Barkley didn't stick to his guns very long. Which one jumps out at you as the most that do you think will last the longest?
Guys under contract are fined $50,000 a day, and those fines can't be rescinded. And Bosa, Chris Jones at Kansas City, those guys who are in Zach Martin, I saw this happen to Dwayne Brown, left tackle here in 17. He missed time that cost him $4 million. in fines. And they couldn't do like the old days and say, yeah, come on in, we'll forgive the fines. They have to take it out of the contracts. Dwayne Brown ended up getting traded to Seattle, got a new contract next year, but he would have gotten that in Houston. He was mad because they wouldn't redo his deal with 2 years left. So these guys better seek a balance. Now, Bosa's on his rookie contract, so they can't fine him, and so he can stay out as long as he wants. But, boy, when you hold out a long time, you come in, no matter how hard you've worked to be in shape, you're not in football shape. You run the risk of having a lot of pull muscles, and then you run the risk of not getting off to a slow start. And I was surprised. I didn't think that about Zach Martin until I heard about it last week, and sure enough, he decided to do it. But, you know, some teams don't have a lot of contract issues with veteran players. They find ways to get it done. Cowboys, Eagles, 49ers. So I think that Zach Martin, maybe he wants more money, obviously. And even though he gets to go to Southern California where the weather's fabulous, a lot of guys just don't like being at every day at training camp. I used to see guys, they wouldn't report because they said they hurt their back lifting weights and things like that, and they had miraculous recovery. So you can't ever rule that out.
Josh Jacobs remains holding out. As Paul mentioned, though, Saquon Barkley, that was short-lived. He agrees to a one-year deal. What does that tell you, if anything, about, I guess, Barkley's situation? And what do you make, John? I mean, you've seen it probably plastered all over Twitter and national headlines, all of the running backs speaking out about their position in the game right now. Just what do you make of that situation? Is it anything that will actually, create something new, or is this just kind of the way of the world?
It's the way of the world. Why in the world would the NFL do something, give players more money they don't have to give them? It was created by the collective bargaining agreement that the unions collectively bargained and signed off on. And the problem is, colleges put out so many running backs, and they throw the ball so much, most of them can catch the ball. It's not like it used to be where the running backs had pitchfork hands. And you can keep them for 7 years if you're a first-round pick, 5 years on the initial contract, then you franchise in 2 years, and then cut them loose and start over after 7 seasons, like what happened to Zeke Elliott, who still can't get a job. And at some point, the dominoes will fall. Teams will give these guys money that is not impressive, but give them a lot of incentives. If they stay healthy, they do well, and they help the team. Problem with Josh Jacobs, he didn't have his fifth-year option picked up for a reason. The Raiders didn't think he earned it. Then he goes out and leads the NFL in rushing. So what? Did it help him make the playoffs? No. And they can point out to his agent, hey, Josh was great last year, but it didn't help us make the playoffs. Saquon Barkley was great last year, and they did make the playoffs. So they were a surprise team, but it's not going to change. Best thing you can do is be a player not picked in the first round, do great your first 2 years, and get an extension before your third year or after your third year, and hope that you do well enough that you get paid a lot of money through your seventh season. We're not going to see any more LaDainian Tomlinsons hit double figures. Frank Gore played like 16 years. Jerome Bettis, those guys hung around, bouncing from team to team for about the minimum or a little more because they love football. But nothing is going to be done to help the poor running backs make more than $10.1 million a year.
Yeah, John, there's no, like you said, there's no incentive. The NFL doesn't have to change. Collective, like I can't even think of a way that they could collectively bargain that in to make it better for them.
Well, they can't because the other positions have any sympathy for them. The quarterbacks have any sympathy.
No.
Yeah, they can come out and say they do, but are they going to give up something to help those guys get more money? It's weird because tight ends make more than they do. And Christian McCaffrey, we're not going to see any more like him where he got $16 million a year, even though he's a great player and a great receiver. He had a lot of injuries. If anybody deserves it among running backs, it's Derrick Henry because he's now 29 in the last year of his contract. You think he's going to get a big deal when he hits 30? No. But they'll run him till his tongue's dragging the ground trying to catch the Jaguars and win the AFC South. And then maybe he signs a 1-year extension or he just walks.
John, the Cowboys signed Trayvon Diggs to a big contract today. Do you think that was a good move for them?
I don't keep up enough. I thought they didn't think so. They wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
I'm sure Zach Martin would say, hey, I've been a perennial Pro Bowler. You know, we always have a good running game. I'm a key part of that. I'm a good soldier. Give me some of that money. Problem is, Zach Martin's under contract. And I don't blame players wanting money. I don't blame them doing whatever they think they need to do. They get cut while they're under contract. Teams can get rid of them on a whim. So never be angry at players trying to get money when the league can sign a guy to a contract and then cut him the next day.
John, do you have, we haven't talked about this in a while. You used to be in a bunch of movies. Do you have anything coming up on the horizon now that you're semi-retired?
No, I've been on strike.
Oh yeah, that's
2009.
True.
And
you were way ahead of this. You were way ahead of it.
I'm so semi-retired. I write 3 columns a week, do 3 40-minute podcasts, and make 11 weekly radio appearances, including 6 on Sports Radio 610. And so I'm just doing a different thing where it's a whole lot easier now than it was. And Craig, you mentioned that thing. I did about 10 things Texans need to accomplish. I did one yesterday, 5 players under the most pressure in training camp and for reason to help the team be better. And a hot button topic down here right now, fans and media have gone ballistic because the Titans are going to wear Oilers uniforms, which is their right because the Oilers are the Titans. They're not the Texans. On my radio station today at 11 o'clock on In the Loop, the three of us were screaming at each other, and everybody thinks I should move to Nashville because I like it. I want to see those Columbia blue uniforms, and I love them, and there's only one team that can wear them, and that's the Titans. But it is a hot-button topic, and when they announce it officially that they're going to do it against Houston in December in Nashville, I'm going to write a column with guys like Warren Moon, Dan Pastorini, Robert Brazil, and Bruce Matthews talking about how much they like it, too.
John, I guess they want the Browns thing where the league would have just retroactively kind of taken the Browns name back, but that's just not going to happen, right?
No, they negotiated with the mayor there to keep it. The mayor did with the NFL to keep the name. They moved. They became the Ravens in Baltimore. And people in Houston didn't have the passion for the Oilers. Now, all of a sudden, they act like they did. They did when they were winning. But they moved after the 96 season. In the last 2 seasons, the crowds were awful. Fans were mad at Bud Adams. And the Oilers, Tennessee Oilers, wore Columbia blue for 2 years before they became the Titans, got a new stadium, new facility, and new uniforms with different colors. And then when Bob McNair got his franchise in 99, he was like, we want to be the Oilers. We want to wear Columbia blue. It was a moot point because Bud Adams got the commissioner, Paul Tagliabue, put in writing. Nobody could ever do that except his franchise.
John McClain, Sports Radio 610 in Houston. John, thanks for hopping on as always.
Second Bears.
There you go. It's not the same without that. When we come